are you, boys?
Good. How are you?
Good to see you again.
Yeah, we're just talking about having a drink,
Yeah, but
possibly.
Getting boozed.
having a look at what I've been looking at over the last couple of days, I'm maybe thinking twice about it.
Yeah, it's hard to put it in too much of a positive light. There's probably a couple of positives there, but there's
I
hell
couldn't
of a lot of
find
negatives.
any positives.
Yeah, I reckon there's a couple. There's a couple positives. Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe.
there's positives socially,
Yep.
physiologically. I couldn't find a lot.
Tough
No.
sell, isn't it? So
Yeah.
today we're obviously talking about alcohol and its positives, negatives, and I guess social sort of effects.
Hmm.
How are you, Mick? How's the weather in Queensland? Must be beer drinking weather over there.
Smashing a 4X.
It's perfect weather to knock a few coldies off. It's warming up over here. We're heading into that wet season now, so starting to get a little bit muggy, starting to get a little bit humid. You walk out the front and you're already sweating before you get to your car, but no, mate, no complaints, no rain so far. It's been great.
Does that make you feel like a beer, Mick, just being in hot weather all the time?
Look, I'm not a big beer drinker, but it definitely makes you feel like a cold beverage, that's for sure. Yeah, maybe a ginger beer or
Sparkling
something
water.
like that.
And there's nothing better than that image, and you can all visualise it right now on a hot day, and you've got a real cold stubby, and it beads on the outside, just because, and you know it's cold and it's ready to be downed.
Yeah.
You know, and it's been a hot day. Maybe you put in some hard yards on the tools, and a cold frothy just goes down like mother's milk.
It's probably conditioning, don't you reckon? Like I remember as a kid, those epic, I think they were VB ads. I don't know if you guys got them over in the West, but I'm obviously from the East Coast. And the VB ads, epic, you know.
Yeah.
When you've been driving a steer or whatever, drinking a beer.
Yeah.
You know.
They were good ads, those.
They were great ads, yeah. They were epic, but they really...
Some good marketing, that.
Great marketing, because they brought together hard work with drinking a beer.
Yeah, they did.
And you're right. I think about like a day where you've been outside just busting your hump and it's hot.
Yeah.
And there's nothing better than getting a really cold beer and having that first sip, and it just tastes so good.
Yeah. Like it's just like, you know, you could do the same thing with some sparkling water. You know, oh, geez, I really feel like a sparkling water now after a hard day's work. It just doesn't really cut it, does it?
Just really feel like an iced tea. It hasn't got the same.
No.
I don't know what
But I
it
guess
is.
most people would know that alcohol is bad, right? You would think. And, and you're making that decision to go, okay, I know this is not great for me, which we make those decisions all the time in life, don't you?
Yeah.
Crossing the road, or I'm going to run, beat the traffic real quick, get across the road. Well, you could trip and fall, and then that car's got you, right?
Yep.
Something like that. But
eat an occasional slice of cake because it tastes so good.
Yeah.
It's not that good for you.
And you know that alcohol is probably not good for you, but you weigh up those risks and rewards, the pain, pleasure balance, and you kind of look at it and go, well, I'm going to have a nice beer. It's 375 mils in a can, isn't it? And you're kind of hydrating.
Yeah.
Kind of hydrate. Kind of. Some of the stuff I saw when I was looking into it was light or very light consumption of alcohol is maybe okay. You know, and if you're talking 2 or 3 drinks a night, you're looking at bad news, you know, and very light consumption is sort of half a drink a night. I mean, you know, that might average out over 2 or 3 nights. Having half a drink is probably okay.
Yeah.
Did you
But
come across
apart
that
from
sort of J-shaped curve they talk about where, it's probably exactly what you were saying, like very light consumption can maybe have some overall positive effects?
Yes.
But it's very light. The stuff I came across is maybe like 1 drink a week.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Not even like 1 a night.
Yeah.
Like talking like, much less than 1 a night. And then you sort of quickly get into the sort of quite bad effects if you're drinking 1, 2 or more.
Yeah.
And that's not even discussing binge drinking and
Yeah.
the other stuff that goes with that.
Yeah, and I guess maybe is it worthwhile discerning the effects on adults compared to youth, because it says that your brain completes development at around 24, 25 years of age, and unfortunately in our culture, some of us start drinking at 13 years of age, and a lot of the damage gets done then. Like, say an adult now drinking a few drinks a week, is possibly a lot better than the binge drinking that goes on during your teenage and early 20s years. That I look back at my years, and I started drinking. I got my first night on the beers when I was 15 on Emu Export. Spewed me guts up, had me head out the back of my mate's car and vomited down the side of his car. That sort of shit, and that just led for the next, whatever years, drinking, binge drinking, and I just think back, how much of effect did that have on my brain development? Because there's ample evidence as I was going through this prior to talking today about the destruction of the brain, the developing brain in adolescence through binge drinking.
Yeah.
There was this
beer kills brain cells. You know that old saying. It's true, isn't it?
It is.
The neocortex, the outer layer of your brain, is damaged.
Imagine if you could get up to 25 years of age without having a drink.
Yeah.
How much more, how much smarter you would be.
Yes.
How much greater memory retention you would have.
And also your chance of becoming an alcoholic would be greatly reduced.
Yeah.
As opposed to if you start drinking when you're 13, 14, 15.
There's evidence to support
increases.
The earlier the person starts drinking, even alcoholism and drug addiction is more highly likely than a person that doesn't.
Yes.
Or starts drinking later on.
Yeah.
I've actually got a study that sort of, I think, fits quite well with where you've gone with that, Roo, if you don't mind me sort of bringing it up now, mate.
Yeah.
And it's in relation to, specifically within the brain, we've got the brain, part of the brain called the hippocampus. And it's really, really affected by alcohol consumption. And the hippocampus, without diving too deep into science here, because I don't want to bore everyone, but the specifics of the hippocampus and its particular functions are to do with learning, memory, memory encoding, memory consolidation, all of these sorts of functions. And there was actually a longitudinal study I found, which was pretty confronting, and it was conducted at the University of Oxford, and it was done over 30 years. And they tracked the drinking patterns and brain health of these participants for that whole time at different periods. And there was obviously a range of alcohol consumption through that time that was reported. But those participants that had 4 or more drinks a day, and that's an average that they've given here, showed significant shrinkage compared to non-drinkers in the region of the hippocampus.
Yeah.
There was even a mild to moderate shrinkage in people who were low alcohol consumers. So what that tells me is that, again, we use the word moderation at times, I think, to let ourselves off the hook a little bit in society and say, I don't do this and I don't do this, but I'm going to do this. But I think, and I agree with the area we'll go into in terms of what are the positives, and certainly socially, and it allows us to relax and things like that. But from the perspective of impacts on the brain, whether it's a small amount, whether it's a medium amount, or whether it's a large amount, it is absolutely severely detrimental to brain health.
Particularly in the developing brain. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of these participants were tracked from that sort of adolescent age. And I mean, we won't dive into all that other stuff because I'm sure you guys will talk about some of that as well. But in particular, that hippocampal damage was very, very significant.
Yeah, well, I saw a study, a 2015 CDC study called the Youth Risk Behaviour Study, and they just asked high school students what their activities were over the previous 30 days. So it'd be everything, any sport, exercise, or drug taking or alcohol, whatever. And in relation to alcohol, 33% said they drank some amount of alcohol in the previous 30 days. 18% reported binge drinking. Which obviously, from binge drinking, you've got associated behaviour problems like, violence, sexual assault, things that relate from now on to pregnancies, STDs, blah, blah, blah. 8% said they had drunk in the last 30 days. And more than 90% of the alcohol consumed by young people was in the form of binge drinking. Crazy, eh?
Yeah.
Do you reckon we've got a big problem with that in Australia as compared to other parts of the world? It seems like Australia is a real binge drinking nation, and it seems to be more in our culture. I think some European cultures maybe don't have that as much. Certainly they would still have it, but I feel like Australia has a particular problem with binge drinking, probably particularly with young men. But
I reckon, mate, because I've heard stories of European families having their children, I don't know how young the children are, or teenage children, having a glass of wine at dinner. Or being exposed to small amounts of alcohol in a social setting. I don't know whether that counteracts or prevents binge drinking.
Yeah. Is that detrimental or is it helpful? You know, are they getting a little taste and they're like, well, it's not a big deal, I'll have a little bit now, or you know, that rebellious aspect of going out and
spot on,
stealing
mate.
a couple of your dad's beers and
because it's that forbidden fruit sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think for me, guys, that's that. And I got the double ender here because I live in Australia, but I was born in Ireland, and they bloody drink the stuff like it's water. But what I would say, and I think you guys certainly will connect with this at times. When I know I'm having a beer with a couple of mates, I get excited about it. You know, like there's few things that really, really excite me, but catching up with my good mates, yourselves included, knowing we're going to have a couple of beers, not really even need to do anything, just be in each other's company, reminisce, talk about old memories. I think we've said before, it's really enjoyable and I get really excited. And I think that particularly in younger people, there's that, you know, and I probably still was doing that into my mid-20s, to be fair. My wife would probably definitely say that. But, you know, it's you have intentions. Certainly my personality type is one where you'll say, oh, I'll just have a couple. But you never have I never used to have a couple. You know, a couple would turn into 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 beers. And before you know it, you've effectively done what we said. You've binge drunk.
Yeah.
And I think it's that excitement, that social expectation, that getting around with your mates. You know, we all know what it was like when we were younger, where you go out with the boys and then someone's knocking off early and you're giving them a ribbing. Oh, you bloody heading home to the missus, eh? Oh, yep, no worries, leave the boys there. We'll be right. We'll hold the fort. You know, like we've all been there. But I think with kids in particular, there's that component, that aspect of it as well. That pressure and that excitement that, you know, they probably don't have the experience to control.
Interestingly, if you look at some of the stats that are coming about alcohol consumption in our young people, it's declined significantly.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of in the punk scene, they used to call it straight edge. You know, if you didn't drink, you didn't do any drugs. There's a lot of straight edge kids these days, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah,
they're choosing not to, and that's why the rise in sales of sort of non-alcoholic drinks has gone up. And I don't understand. It's a bit like vegan meat, you know. What are you gonna? But you know that aspect of health related, maybe this next generation are more educated.
Yeah.
You know, have seen the things that alcohol have done. I mean, if you think about it, like Mickey said, I was never one that could drink much at all. It doesn't sit well with me. And I often thought, why do I go out and have too many drinks and then the next day wake up feeling shithouse? You know, if someone gave you a pill, said, take this, you're going to feel shit tomorrow. There's no way you're going to do it, are you? You know, there are elements that come along with, like Mickey said, the camaraderie, the friendship, you know, the social aspect. Yeah, do we actually need alcohol? And maybe this next generation are smarter than we are.
Well, if you think about this generation, what they've been exposed to, like Smitty mentioned earlier about the VB ads. When I was a boy, on the telly was always, you know, beer, even cigarette adverts. Now, as opposed to the old good VB ad, kids are seeing, you know, all these sort of very medical-based bad effects of what alcohol can do. You see a picture of a rotten liver or something like that. So
there's one at the moment with the ladies pouring the alcohol into it. It's like a
glass baby,
a glass baby,
fetus. Yeah. So there's these really effective visual sort of things being presented
Yep.
to kids these days to scare the fuck out of them.
Yeah.
You know,
Which
whereas
maybe it should. I mean, looking into it
Yeah.
here,
yeah,
maybe it should be worrying. I've got, there's a fair bit of stuff to say, it's bad for your brain. Like Mickey's saying, the hippocampus damages the hippocampus, damages the neocortex, which is that outer layer of your brain that's sort of looking at memories, thinking, planning, ability to regulate certain aspects.
the liver cops
The liver, yeah. The gut microbiome, man, we could.
Yeah, we'll probably
That's-
talk about that in
yeah.
more detail later.
That's a
maybe.
huge
Yeah,
one.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Because
Yeah.
if you look at what alcohol is, basically, it's a fat and water soluble, so it can get into every cell. It doesn't discriminate about the cells that it damages throughout your body. So gut, brain, it can pass that blood brain barrier.
Yep.
It gets into your white and grey matter. It's a bit of a concern.
It sure
It's
is.
definitely a toxin, right? So
Well, it's a class 1 carcinogen,
yeah,
so it's the most carcinogenic,
yeah,
equal to asbestos and
yeah.
radiation and
Yeah.
all the really nasty stuff. So,
So there's a few different types of alcohol. One of them, or the only one that is fit for human consumption, ethyl or ethanol.
ethanol. Yep.
So that is a toxin, and then when the body breaks it down into various components to be further broken down, right? But it's goes from ethanol to acetaldehyde, which is a flat out toxin. It's actually worse than alcohol.
It's a straight up poison.
Yeah, it's a poison.
Yep.
Yeah, and your ability to clear that acetaldehyde out of your body is what develops, drunkenness, hangovers, etc. And it's really a poison-induced one state of pleasure for a little while and then pain because you are getting rid of that poison out of your body. It's hard to find a positive other than that social aspect. And how if we have that social aspect without a beer or without alcohol, do we need it? I don't know.
Yeah.
But you do look like a weirdo, right? I often go to places, not that I don't drink at all, but I often go to places I'm not having a drink today. And what's wrong with you?
People get upset, don't they?
Yeah, they're genuinely offended. Yeah.
definitely a social pressure, but
Yeah.
also an individual pressure as well. Like you stand around in a circle at a social event with nothing in your hands. What the fuck do you do with your hands? Put them in your pocket, like
Fold 'em
play
up,
with your
yeah.
balls, whatever. But having something in your hand like a frothy,
Yeah.
you're
Can't you do that with
You're-
your sparkling water though?
yeah, you could, I guess. Yeah, definitely.
But you wouldn't, would you?
No.
weird.
It's just not we're not conditioned to do that.
Yeah, I looked at the. We've spoken a little bit about the social aspect of drinking, but we've also got like the biochemical sort of aspect of drinking. And so, like socially and culturally, we want to drink because we want to be included in the sort of pack and we want to have something to do and all that sort of stuff. But I was actually looking at why, like from a biochemical point of view, we want to start drinking and sort of keep drinking. And it's a bit of a interesting thing that I didn't really realize. So when we have our first like one or two drinks, we get that sort of pleasurable feeling of you just start to feel a bit tipsy. And we're actually getting like a release of endorphins.
Yeah,
So those
yeah.
sort of like positive, like opioid sort of hormones get released in your body. And you're actually also getting a hit of dopamine, which is going to make you feel good. And you're getting a relaxation of your prefrontal cortex and your temporal lobe. So you don't make as good a decisions, or your decision making is like a little bit inhibited. You get disinhibited. So you'll sort of say things maybe that you wanted to say that you've sort of kept in. So you get that whole pleasurable feeling. But then after that, it actually starts to kind of drop off. And for a lot of people, what that does is it triggers you to want to go and get another
Get
drink
more.
to chase that
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
And they sort of say that you probably can't get back that initial sort of feeling of goodness, but people do keep going back. We're like the rats or the hamsters that want to keep going and getting that extra hit when you go and push that button. So it's that sort of habit forming where like you have one or two and then that makes you want to have three or four, and then all of a sudden you've had 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And then you've also got that social component as well of everyone else around you is having beers or drinks or whatever. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's a
And so is that
lures
something?
you in.
Is that something that our brain remembers, Smitty? Like, so you just said there that release of dopamine and that sort of thing. That's such a powerful effect on our brains. Does that subconsciously like remain there so that the next time you go for a drink, that's probably why, like Mickey said, you're really excited to do it because you know that you're going to get that hit, that dopamine feeling, that release of all those positive initially, those positive feelings.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I reckon you would. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. But I know what you're saying, Mick, about catching up and having a few frothies with the boys. I love it. I really enjoy getting with my mates and having some beers. And some of my fondest memories and some of our fondest things we reminisce about are our escapades on the piss, which sounds stupid to say, but some of the greatest times I've ever had are with my mates, a night on the beers or whatever.
I think it's probably based upon that, isn't it? The release of dopamine, serotonin. You're happy
in a group setting.
In a group setting,
and also that inhibition and that sort of probably like lesser threshold for decision making
Yeah,
probably makes you do
yeah.
like a bit more risky activities, which end up being shenanigans when you look back on them if you live through them.
Yeah.
Unless that risky activity is maybe like, oh, I'm going to get hammered and drive, and then you go and kill a family or something. So it's sort of we were all we've made good decisions even though we were less, or we had less inhibitions.
Yeah, I was like the dancing, mate.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm always renowned to get on the dance floor and own it when I've had a couple of beers, but...
Is that because no one will go near you?
Probably. Well, they don't go near me because they just crowd a circle.
Out, yeah. Because you're drunk. You're thinking, oh, look how good I'm going.
Yeah. I've had actually a good mate that I've been often really enjoy going out with and having good times with. I've known him for a number of years, a good uni mate. I've been at the Paddington Ale House and he's actually had a circle around him on the dance floor, forming a clapping audience.
Wow.
Because he's that good.
Got some moves.
Yeah, he's got some moves. Wow. Yeah.
Good on him.
I mean, interesting point, Smitty, about the chemical side of things. Yeah, and like you were talking about before, Jonesy, about the gut health. I read somewhere that drinking alcohol, the effects of drinking alcohol are worsened by poor gut health.
Yes.
But poor gut health is influenced by alcohol consumption. So it's like a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember having really bad hangovers, and I think I mentioned this on one of our earlier podcasts. Until I started drinking apple cider vinegar every morning, I don't know whether, and eating fermented foods, whether I'd changed my gut biome to the point where my hangovers were so much less harsh than what I had prior to working on gut health.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because that's one of, I was going to talk about later on, ways to not get rid of, but maybe reduce a hangover. And that is definitely in there, is having those fermented foods and having good gut health before you go out drinking, because it is a toxin that, acetaldehyde, it damages, kills your good, if you think about, you cut yourself, you get the old alcohol wipes, that's, you're not doing that because it's helping your wounds stick together. You're doing it because it's killing the germs on there.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what we're doing as we're drinking.
Yeah.
It's killing most of the cells.
Yeah.
The good
bacteria.
The good bacteria.
Yeah.
So if you can, develop your gut microbiome before, you're getting some sauerkraut in, some kimchi, apple cider vinegar, you're working on your gut health. I think it would be, you're going to have better outcomes for your hangover.
What about if you mix some vodka into your kombucha? Does it just even each thing
Maybe.
out?
Yeah. That was one thing I read was the vodka, gin, and even tequila, your clear alcohols are your better alcohols to drink compared to your darks, like your beers and your wines, because the darker alcohols contain more congeners, they called them. The congeners were
nitrates.
Yeah. So like
preservatives, flavors,
things like that. Yeah, which made things like hangovers worse. So your congeners are your various molecules and compounds that are toxic to your body. So like tannins, the polyethanols and other mycotoxins. So your dark alcohols have more of these congeners and will contribute to a worse hangover, a more worse hangover.
Worser.
Than your clear alcohols because they have less of the congeners or the toxins in them.
I reckon I've experienced that. Like I've had nights where I've gone out and had a few just vodka, lime and sodas, like enough that I would probably feel bad the next day if that was an equal amount of beers.
Yeah.
Beer messes me up the next day. Like I love a beer.
Yeah.
But if I have too many beers, I feel quite bad the next day.
Yeah.
If I just drink vodka, lime and soda, I feel pretty good.
Yeah.
I might have seen that list, Rooster, because I think it had. Did they talk about just ethanol in orange juice as the number one drink to have?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, ethanol in orange juice, beer, vodka.
Hello, kind sir. Can I have
Yeah.
one ethanol with orange juice?
Well, some of the things are just ethanol with flavor.
Yeah.
If you get a spiced rum,
Mm.
it's not a Captain Morgan's. A cheaper one is not a barrel aged rum. It's just an ethanol with a flavor.
Mm.
So if you're pairing that with something else, it's probably not as bad. Or this scale. I think they said brandy was the worst. Did you
I didn't see that.
didn't get that one? No.
No.
Anyway, I don't know how many people are drinking brandy these days.
Yeah. But yeah, it's I know what you're saying, Smitty, and it's a diuretic as well. So dehydration's a massive part of a night on the beers. You're dehydrated. It's going to contribute to a bad hangover.
Yeah. If you can hydrate first, and the electrolyte loss is pretty big.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
you got to pump up your salt,
Yeah.
bit of sodium,
Yeah.
potassium, magnesium.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
why
all in the right
sometimes
balance.
some guys have had those sports drinks, Gatorade,
Yeah.
whatever sport drinks. When they've finished drinking, or knock off a few of those,
Yeah.
replace those electrolytes. They have said that they feel better the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Maybe bumping up your B vitamin a bit
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
You know the old Barocca?
Yeah,
Well, it's got that aspartame in it, which is the stuff that makes it fizz, is also not a good thing for you. But it's got a good lot of B vitamins in it.
would you have
I
that
think they used to.
before you go to bed after a night, or would you have it the
I
next morning?
Go for both.
Mm.
Just turn that piss radioactive yellow.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of the things that I saw about hangovers, and one of the interesting things was they talked about food. You know how they say you should eat food so that it soaks up the alcohol. Well, really, all it's doing is slowing the effects.
Yeah.
So it's not soaking up any alcohol and making you able to drink more.
Yeah.
It just slows the ability. So if you have it on an empty stomach, you get those feelings of euphoria a lot quicker than you do
Yeah.
if you have a full stomach.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, because it's a toxin, I was talking about, ethanol to acetaldehyde, then it gets broken down to acetate. So acetate is what we can use as a fuel. So but because it's a toxin, the body wants to eliminate that toxin and get rid of it really quickly. So what you go out on the beers and people say, "Oh, eating's cheating. You shouldn't be eating." That's going to slow the effects. Well, also what that's doing is because it's a toxin, the body wants to get rid of it first. So it preferentializes that as its fuel source to break it down into its components to use as fuel or get rid of. So if you're eating as well, the breaking down of that food gets put on the back burner, and you pretty much store all of that as excess calories, whatever that might
Yeah.
be.
Right.
Muscle, liver, glycogen,
Yeah.
whatever it is, fat storage. So if you are drinking and eating, it's kind of what did Mickey call a double ender, as Mickey said earlier.
Which explains why they say that it's when people put on weight, generally it's because of the type of food they're eating whilst they're drinking.
Yeah.
And generally you do opt for shit.
Yep.
You're not going to get a nice stick of celery or carrot while you're having a couple of beers.
Yeah.
You're going to have chips or some crap.
Greasy something.
Yeah. So therefore,
Yep.
your theory there would contribute to greater weight gain.
Yeah. Well, and they're empty calories too. They're not.
Yeah.
There's nothing nutritional about it. It's
Yeah.
just trying to break it down into.
But there is anecdotal evidence, though. Like you see some people pull up really, really crook after drinking without any food in their stomach. I find
Possibly.
myself, if I have a good meal before I start drinking, I wake up, the next day I'm better than if I didn't. I know that contradicts
Maybe it slows it
theory.
down.
Yeah, possibly slows it down. I
But
don't know.
it's probably also that breakdown of, maybe it slows that breakdown of the acetaldehyde, which is the toxin that's causing you to
Yeah.
feel no good.
Yeah.
Maybe it slows that down too. I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah. But being the ancestral man and the
Well, they
ancestral man podcast, they did drink
Yeah.
alcohol type beverages.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Didn't they? Like fermented fruits.
Yeah,
Uh,
thousands and thousands of years ago.
I think
this
I heard the first. They reckon the
evidence?
first people that were fermenting alcohol dates back to like the 1st century.
Chinese. Was it Chinese?
Yeah.
Chinese,
First
yeah.
century,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think
They had
the Irish want to lay claim, but I think the Chinese were well ahead of them.
They found a mixed fermented drink of rice, honey, and hawthorn fruit in some pots or whatever. It's a pottery discovered in that China
There you go.
place in China, a place of a Neolithic settlement dating back to 7,000 to 6,000 BC.
I wonder what they used it.
BC.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wonder if they used it for ceremonial purposes, or what it was. Was it just an everyday drink, or
Probably
was
wasn't
it just
young people going out binge drinking.
Yeah,
was it?
yeah. It probably
Yeah.
was probably only sort of a couple of nights. I don't know.
Yeah. Wine was first fermented in Caucasia, which is around the southern Russia, Georgia region, back in 6,000 BC. More importantly, though, beer, because we all love our beers. First brewed, they reckon, by the Sumerians in Sumeria, which is the old Mesopotamia. Yeah, southeastern sort of Middle East, southeastern Iraq, Middle East area. Approximately 3000 BC. And that Sumeria area was known for its abundance in farming of wheat, barley, and grains.
There you go.
And I can actually quote you a little line from a poem. I won't read you the poem, but there's a
Please
poem
do.
from ancient Mesopotamia which references beer.
Oh.
The poem is titled The Epic of Gilgamesh. And Gilgamesh was the king of the people in Sumeria at that time. And he had a good old war buddy and a comrade, friend called Enkidu.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Inky.
old Inky.
Yeah.
And Gilgamesh introduced Enkidu to his clan and people, and introduced him to the food and the beer of the people. And it was written in this poem, in inverted commas, "Drink the beer as is the custom of the land." He drank the beer 7 jugs and became expansive and sang with joy.
There
End
you
of
go.
quote.
Wow.
How good's that? That's going back to 3000 BC.
Wow.
So
7
there's
jugs.
a reference of someone getting pissed, having his mate over, putting a feed on for him and shouting the beers, 7 jugs, mind you.
That's a bit.
Yeah. And his mate getting joyful.
There you go.
Yeah.
So there you go, Mick. You're practicing a 1,000-year-old tradition.
And what a great tradition it is.
We haven't really talked about how it affects your sleep too as you go to bed.
Oh, it fucks your sleep up, man.
Sure does.
Sleep and
Yeah.
hangover. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
horrendous.
Yeah.
Don't you reckon it's a common misconception because people say, "Oh, I have beers, I go to sleep straight away."
You probably fall asleep quick,
which
don't
you
you?
do. You go to sleep real quick.
Yeah. But then you're kind of waking up throughout the night.
Yeah.
Your
tossing and
mouth's dry.
turning, having
you
a
need,
piss.
You need to go to the toilet.
Yeah.
You're stinking hot. You can feel your heart beating, I reckon.
Yeah.
You can feel it beating faster to try and get that blood around your body. I reckon just try to get some, I don't know what it's doing, but
Yeah. Maybe that's to do with what you're drinking your alcohol with, like caffeinated drinks or something like that. Or
I don't know.
soft
I just think the body, the physiology of the body changes because it's that toxin. It wants to get rid of it. And how does it do that? Pumps more blood around. Maybe you breathe heavily. You got to breathe because I think that's one of the ways you get rid of it is through
Yeah.
breath.
Yeah.
So maybe you breathe more. Body pumps the blood around quicker. I don't know. Your heart's got more work to do. I don't know. That's unscientifically proven. But
Could just be dehydration. Maybe you're just so dehydrated that your heart's got to beat really quick because your
Yeah.
circulating volume's a bit less.
I don't know. Or maybe that's just me. I don't.
I've experienced that.
Yeah.
I remember as a young fella lying there, and you can just really feel your heart
Yeah.
pounding it to the point where you can't get to sleep.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
This probably isn't good.
I think because we talked about there's that gene that in the coffee episode last week, there's that gene that some people have, like Mickey was talking about. He can't really have a coffee. Or your wife, Smithy, can't have one sort of before or after 12 o'clock because then, they can't clear the caffeine. Well, the acetaldehyde, I keep going back to that. It's a fun word to say too. People have a similar gene that they can't clear that out quick enough. So, 1 or 2 drinks really stuffs them up and they just can't drink because maybe it's part genetics that some people have a gene that clears that out really quick. you've got mates that can have 20, 30 beers a night and wake up the next day and are good to go, and others have, like me, 3 or 4 and are no good. They just don't have the ability to clear that toxin out of the body. I don't know. It was quite interesting looking into it.
Yeah, there's probably a genetic component, but there's probably also those regular drinkers. You just get that, they call it liver enzyme induction, where your liver will just make more enzymes that are responsible for like breaking that compound down. So it's like if you take a drug regularly, your body will get better at breaking it down.
Yeah.
So there's probably a bit of that.
Yeah.
If they're sort of well-seasoned drinkers and their body's well practiced at sort of experiencing that alcohol and, breaking it down into.
I think there was stuff about with alcoholism. There's a propensity to move towards that with that. You can clear that out quickly, so the tolerance is higher, and you don't feel as bad, and the side effects aren't quite as bad. Tied to that gene. Anyway.
I was reading something about people with a propensity for alcoholism, and they were sort of saying that their experience with alcohol is different when they start drinking. So for most people, like, you'll have a few drinks, you'll sort of hit that high point, and then the really sort of like depressive effects of alcohol will come in, where you will start to feel tired and a bit lethargic, and while initially you'll sort of be more talkative and more up and about, you'll hit that point where you have a lot of alcohol, and then you'll sort of come down and you'll sort of start to feel more, drowsy. Maybe you'll start getting sleepy and you'll have less to say. But apparently people that have like a genetic predisposition to alcoholism will continue to just have like more and more energy, like the more they drink.
Oh, yeah. I think
So you probably all got those mates where there's one or two of them and they'll just power
Go
drink
all night.
throughout the night and they'll just go all night and just like effortless energy.
Yeah.
And you look around the room and everyone else is half fucked and they're all sort of flopped about.
Yeah.
And, just like, I want this to be over. Like,
So they're the alcoholics that we need to worry about.
I think, according to like what I read,
they
might just have more of a predisposition where they might have problems with alcohol down the track. Whereas if you're one of those more traditional majority of people who will have it and then eventually, have less energy and want to go to sleep.
Yep.
Would that also apply to the dude that can wake up the next morning and crack open a beer after a big night? Nah, hair of the dog.
That's a hangover cure, I suppose?
Well, they reckon
Let's
not.
talk. No.
You listen to some science and it says it's just delaying
it just pushes it back.
the effect. Yeah, actually is not a hangover cure itself.
So we know that it's a toxin, right? We're all going to do it. We're all going to have a drink again. It's not like maybe I don't know. Maybe we'll turn some people around. I've definitely, after looking into this, not had too much to drink. But if we do drink, and we need some hangover cures, right? So what have we got?
Definitely hydration, as we touched on, is a big one.
Yeah, electrolyte replacement.
Yeah.
Whether you take out a little sachet of electrolytes or whatever, it could be a bit nerdy, but every time you go to the toilet, pop some electrolyte tablet or something like that. That could help you.
Yeah.
Don't you reckon the Europeans do it really well? Where oftentimes if you go to like a restaurant or a bar, if you order an alcoholic drink, they automatically give you like a little glass of water with it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I reckon that's real good.
clever.
Yeah. The Germans were quite
Hydration.
good with that. Like if you went to a restaurant, every time you ordered like a beer, you'd also get a little thing of water.
Yeah.
Which is quite good.
Did you come across cold exposure as a cure for hangover?
I have heard something about that.
So apparently it pumps up your adrenaline.
Yeah.
1 to 3 minutes. We're big proponents of cold water therapy here.
But then I heard something that like the old cold water shower, like chucking them under the cold shower, doesn't actually have an effect.
Well, maybe it is pumping their adrenaline up to try and clear out some of the toxins.
Could be worth looking into that one. Yeah. But it does make you feel better. Like I know you go down to the ocean and you just jump in the cold ocean, and that makes you feel a lot better if you've been drinking the night before.
Yep.
So there could be some benefit behind that.
Fermented food was another one that sort of helped prevent hangover or made that gut microbiome nice and positive.
What about the food the next day? What's best to eat the next day if you're feeling a bit seedy?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't really look into that.
You crave grease, don't you? Like greasy
bacon
food,
and eggs,
pizza
KFC,
or something bad.
Yeah,
I reckon you crave bad food. It's probably not what you need, but
do you go with what your body's craving?
Yeah, I don't know. Probably not.
Because the last thing I want to do is go and have a celery stick with some peanut butter on it or something like that, or a
big bowl of cereal with milk.
Nice apple.
Maybe fasting. I mean, maybe fasting is the way to go, and you're just unburdening your body from any extra inputs, and it's just allowed to focus on sort of like expelling all the toxins that you've got.
Yeah.
might be a thing.
Yeah,
Sweat it out.
yeah.
Because
There's
alcohol's
actually a bit of
pro-inflammatory, so
Yeah, I heard maybe a little walk so that you're breathing off some of the. Maybe if you could handle a little run.
Yeah. I heard a saying the greatest cure for a hangover is time. That's it.
Wow.
It's just you got to wait it out, man.
It's just so multifaceted. I guess because it's damaging a lot of cells in your body. You know, fat soluble, like we were saying, fat and water soluble before. It's not like we can just take one pill and hit that targeted area of the body or cell. It's so multifaceted. It's just, which makes you think, well, if it's doing that to you, it's kind of attacking various different systems, your gut, your brain, your sleep, you know.
Well, even
Maybe
think
we
about
shouldn't
the
be
question
drinking.
that we were answering there, Jonesy. The question was, what can we offer people in order to reduce their hangover?
Don't
You
drink.
know, like, so, yeah. Like,
Yes.
so ultimately, I find that interesting in itself is despite the impacts that we know this is going to have short, medium, and long term, we're all still going to go back and have a drink. And that's like when you sit and think about that a little bit, it's almost madness, because like you said earlier, if you knew you were going to take a pill and it was going to make you feel like absolute shit the next day,
Why do we
I
do
don't
it?
know, you wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think
But like I said, we weigh up the risks of everything, don't we? We know that it's a risk, and we're gonna.
And you've got control.
Yeah.
You know, as you get older, you learn control and ways to measure what you're consuming. And
Yeah.
I find that as I've got older, I know when to stop. Whereas back in my young days, there was no stop button. It was just go until you dropped.
Yeah.
Now I just, I know when to pull the pin. I know if I have that one more, that's going to tip me over the edge. Yeah. So I guess as you
Experience. It's
get older, yeah,
life.
yeah.
Life experience.
I've got
You have been
teenage.
around for 75 years. It's a lot of life experience behind you.
I've got teenage kids now, and just having the discussion with my 16-year-old daughter, who's openly told us that she's tried alcohol at party, and at first I was a little bit disappointed that she never had her first alcohol tasting with us, but I guess that it's just teenage years. I guess none of us would have liked to have a beer with our mum or dad when we were 15 or 16, but now I'm just. I wish I could just impart this knowledge onto her as to the, particularly what we discussed at the start of this episode about the damages to a developing brain. If they only knew what, she's already had a friend had her stomach pumped in hospital for drinking too much at a party. If these kids only knew, and it's easy for us to say now because we're wiser, but if they only knew the damage they were doing, and all you can do is just educate them, and whether they take it on board, they take it on board. Just give them the science and
and we haven't even discussed the risks of cancer with alcohol.
No,
which is through the roof.
Well, they reckon breast cancer in women is high incidence.
Well, even this study I found, light alcohol drinking, the risk of cancer, very light drink, like I was talking about before, is 0.5. Light is 1. Moderate is 1 to 2. And with very light drinking, 0.5.
Is that per day?
Glass per day, yeah. Yep. They found wasn't really a huge risk in other cancers, except for breast cancer in females and colorectal cancer in males.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and that comes up in a lot. There was a lot of studies on that. There's 12,000 on PubMed when I had a look. Not all related to light drinking, but alcohol in general.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it came up that even light alcohol consumption, so moderate to heavy in another study, the oral cavity, pharynx, esophageal, stomach, colorectal, central nervous system, breast and prostate went through the roof with moderate to heavy drinking.
What's moderate defined as? Do you have the definition of that?
1 to 2
a day.
A day. Because a lot of people promote that as being quite healthy.
Yes.
One drink a day, good for your heart health and good for your overall longevity. And I don't know if that's just maybe a bit of a marketing ploy.
Yeah, I think that, like Mick was saying before, it's a bit of a misnomer. Like, that's not true. Sure.
No, it might be true if you look at like one little isolated part of health. If you exclude everything, but you just looked at, I don't know, heart health or something, for example.
Yeah.
Maybe it's true, but maybe if you're taking into account like all-cause mortality, it seems like probably it's pretty bad.
Yeah. This one here, I thought maybe they'd be a little bit higher, but because it did say it was one of the leading risks for cancer, and maybe I read it wrong, but alcohol consumption, a leading risk for cancer, 2020 study. It attributed to 4.2% of all cancers, but that didn't seem like a lot. I thought it would be a lot higher, being one of the major causes of cancer.
We can look at all these studies and the causes of cancer and so on, but I guess you can do things in your lifestyle to offset the effects of those things, like we've talked about in other podcasts, like supplements, diet, those sort of things that can counteract the negative effects, because we're going to drink alcohol. I'm not going to stop drinking alcohol because I've done a bit more research and found the negative side of it. I'm probably drinking more control, but I think my lifestyle...
I think you say, I'm probably going to drink more.
I think my lifestyle dictates that I can afford it. That's probably sounding a little bit ignorant, but
offsetting the good stuff.
Offsetting,
you do.
Yeah.
Well, there's that social component of like enjoyment and stress relief, and that can't be discounted. I mean,
No.
Yeah, definitely.
If you go out with your mates and you have 2 beers and you just feel really happy and joyful, and you just release all your stress and just have a great day, and you laugh, and maybe you're doing some other positive things. You're out in the sun in a healthy way, and you're getting some fresh air, and you're socialising. Maybe the net effect is 0, or maybe even positive. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hard to say.
Yeah. That's a good finisher from Smith.
Yeah, and again,
another.
You just kicked our match-winning goal again.
Well, no, I wanted to quickly touch on a couple of ones which I actually found really interesting.
Positives?
No. But really blew my mind. One of them is, if you're even a very moderate drinker, you have like 1 or 2 a week, it changes your baseline cortisol level in your body.
Huh.
So like your HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, it somehow alters that, and your baseline cortisol level that is with you all the time can actually be like quite a bit higher if you just consume like a little bit of alcohol.
Yeah, right.
Which is probably a negative. And then also that affects that we've sort of touched on throughout, where it can make you feel like relaxed and unburden you with all your stress. Well, if you're a drinker, when you're not under the effects of alcohol, your baseline stress day to day will actually be higher. I came across this and I've got it written down here. So basically, you've got a balance between GABA and glutamate, which gets altered when you drink. So if you have like quite a lot of drinks, glutamate, which is an excitatory neurotransmitter, will sort of be blocked, and it'll affect GABA. But the next day when you're recovering, your body will sense that you've got this low glutamate and high GABA sort of situation, and it'll work to correct it. But then that will stay for a bit longer, and so you actually be more prone to being anxious.
Yeah, right.
So like when you're not actively under the effect of alcohol, because it's altered your neurotransmitters, it's going to alter them back negatively the next day. Yeah. So maybe that's why it promotes people wanting to drink more, because you drink, you feel good, you feel relaxed and not stressed out. But then the next day, maybe you've got a hangover, but maybe also you're feeling a bit edgy and a bit anxious because your neurotransmitters are all tweaked and your body's working to sort of regain that control, and it puts you more towards being anxious. Also, your baseline cortisol levels are higher. So, I mean, that's quite a negative, really. But I found it really interesting when I came across that. I didn't actually realise that it could sort of influence things in that way. I knew it was bad from the point of the acetaldehyde is a toxin and it's going to damage your liver, and, while you're actively drinking, it's probably going to damage your brain and all that sort of stuff. But I didn't really realise about the longer-term consequence of your neurotransmitters and your stress hormones.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's quite bad, right?
Yeah.
Makes sense, though, doesn't it?
It kind of does when you think about it, I guess. But I'd never come across it, and the only reason that I came across it was doing research for this chat we're going to have. But
and it's interesting that I talked about it before, but it just has an effect on everything in your body. Hormone levels, brain. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And you're going to keep drinking, mate.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, next time I'm at a barbecue, I'm not drinking, and someone asks me, "Why aren't you drinking?" I'll say, "Well, I'm just protecting my neurotransmitters and my hormones, my GABA and glutamate cycle."
That was real nerdy bringing that up, but I was very interested in it, so I couldn't help myself.
Oh yeah, Yeah.
There was no way to
Mate.
sugarcoat it and sound cool.
No, something that I wouldn't have even thought.
No.
The cortisol levels.
No. Yeah. But maybe that's to do with the heart as well. It's kind of stressful and
Mm.
trying to get back to base level.
Yeah, good info.
You don't
Smitty.
see that on the
Yeah.
fucking beer commercials, do you?
No.
No.
Just see people riding horses and bloody doing fun stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
whatever.
Run horses.
I don't know. That's an old-fashioned one, isn't it? I'm
You
sure
might
there's
have a bit of spillage.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I always remember the VB out of the dude that had real dirty hands, and then he had a a flannel shirt, and he cracks the tin.
Yep.
With his, or cracks the bottle with his. I think he might have bloody hands, and I think he's mowing the lawn or something.
There's always a guy with a real tank, sort of like torso with like a wife beater singlet
Yeah.
on. He was necking down a beer. Real working class man.
Good times.
The wording, boys, the wording. The last part is you can get it walking, you can get it talking, you can get it working a plough. Matter of fact, I've got it now. Victoria Bitter.
There you go.
Ah, there you go.
Working a plough. Is that
Maybe
a
that was via horse.
Yeah. Is that a metaphor or?
I think that's Roosters vintage.
Yeah. The old Clydesdale.
Ah, nice. Oh, VB sponsors. Thanks
Yeah.
for the episode.
We worked out how bad it is, but we're all still drinking.
Mm. All right.
Can close it out there.
Yeah, let's go and
Reach
have a
out
froth.
to us. Yeah.
Yeah, yep,
Modern
yeah.
Ancestral Man at gmail.com. Get in touch. Maybe up our social media game soon. Find us out on the socials soon. But in the meantime, contact us via the email. Give us a positive, negative review on there and let us know.
Good stuff.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. See you, lads.
Hear that sound?
Good work.